Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call I guess we can call our joint workshop meeting to order. How about if we start with a round of introductions, and we'll start here with Rachel and just work our way around the table.
The president here at Umpqua Community College.
Hi, great to see everybody. Jared Corden, Superintendent, Roseburg Public Schools.
And I'm Steve Loosely, one of the UCC board members.
Todd Cotton, a director on the Roseburg School Board.
Dave Littlejohn, UCC.
Steve Hammerson, Roseburg School District Board.
Andrew Shercliffe, Roseburg School Board member.
Bud Smith, UCC board member.
Andrea Minor, Roseburg School Board member.
Caroline Lyden, UCC board member.
Lenny, Roseburg School District Board member.
Well, thank you. This wouldn't be complete if we don't have all the people that have joined us to introduce themselves. So how about we'll start somewhere, like pick somebody start. Chelsea.
I'm Misty Olson. I'm the executive director.
Good afternoon, Brett Steiger.
I'm Lucy Bryan.
Great. There's one other person that's helping with our IT. Oh, and we're not done yet. Abigail? All right. Well, thank you all very much. And, this is really exciting for us. It's the first time I think that the Roseburg School Board and the UCC Board have ever gotten together in the same room for a meeting. And really that it's deeply symbolic. And at the same time, it's also really, it's almost emotional for me because it's like my favorite peeps in our community are all here in the same room. I mean, this is really cool. So the symbolism, though, is the deep connection, that our two great leaders are forging between the high school. Well, it's really all the way through the public education system, and then onto college, developing those pathways. And now we have actually someone that's working full time, a joint position that's, absolutely unheard of. That the leadership that they're bringing, and so the cool thing today for us is that we get to learn more about that and how we can work together as two boards and support each other and support our leaders and do the best we possibly can, for our community and especially for our students. UCC's mission is all about, transforming lives, and we can do that by, working, closely, even more closely together than we are. So anyway, let me just say on behalf of our board, thank you all for coming, and all our guests that joined us today. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And I know that out of this close relationship, it will help our students, which is, that is always the goal that I know both, the Roseburg public school system and Umpqua, that's the same goal that both of us have. So what our format today is, Jared and Rachel are going to.
I want to interrupt you for a second. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
On behalf of the Roseburg School Board, we are very happy to be here. And the partnership is just really red hot and rolling right now. And it hasn't always been that way, So these two leaders down there are the reason for that. And of course, the educational part of it, but we're really pleased that you've had us here. And we wanted to, I'm not going to stand because it's next to impossible for me to get up and down. But our students made a plaque. One will go in our boardroom, and this one's going to be for you. And it says Roseburg Public Schools and Umpqua Community College, May 8th, 2024, in partnership for the betterment of our youth, families, and community. So this was made by some of our students. So I'm going to give that to you.
Oh, Rod, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to interrupt you.
No,
Okay.
truth is that Jared told me that you wanted to talk before I turned it over to them. So it's like I own this one. But thank you, Rod, and thank all of the Roseburg, school board members. This is incredibly thoughtful of you to, to present this plaque today. And I think it's absolutely, it's absolutely true that, it does, what we're talking about signifies the real meaningful partnership that we have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rachel and Jared, and you can take it from here.
Great. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to UCC. I think we have some slides that hopefully somebody's putting up anytime now. But I can just talk forever about what we're doing. It doesn't matter about the slides. So welcome. We're so glad you're here. Thank you for those of you who were able to come a little early and take a tour. It was a whistle-stop tour, and of course, our students were the star, as your students always are when we meet them. So thank you for taking the time to do that. We have a really long history of working together, and you can take me straight to that second image if you could. A really long history of working sort of alongside each other in the community, right? So we all serve students, and we've been alongside each other for a really long time. What I'm proud of at this moment is that we are truly starting to integrate, and that looks really different than just working alongside, handing students off to each other instead of sort of treating them all like they're all of our students. And I want to tell you how this first came about. It was at Elmer's in Roseburg. So almost 3 years ago now, I was new to town and Jared was still fairly new. And we were all sort of emerging from COVID. And we said, let's have breakfast because all of the students in Roseburg are all of our students. Roseburg School District students belong to UCC and vice versa. So let's have breakfast and talk about what we're working on and get on the same page. And we started to talk about our successes. And there are a whole bunch of them. There are all these great folks out there who went through Roseburg School District. They found their way to UCC. They got into the workforce and are great community members, or they went off to college and came back. So we have all these successes. But what we realized was they're super random. It was up to that student to randomly find that path. And so good for them, right? They happened to meet the right person or have the right resources or meet the right teacher at the right moment, but it wasn't really systematized. And what we said was, what if that pathway was fully illuminated for every single student? So they didn't have to maybe find their way. And we didn't have to say, oh, remember so-and-so who was that great kid who happened to, become an engineer and move back and work at Convey? Because that's the one student we always talk about. We know their name. What if we get to a point where we don't even have a story off the top of our head because there are so many of those stories. There are so many of those students in great jobs, well-paying jobs, supporting families here in our wonderful community. And that was really where all of this work came from. And then, when we bring our teams into that vision, right, then they make it blossom and they go, well, what if we do this? And what if we do that? What if we had a position whose job it was to wake up every day and think about how we create those pathways? We are super proud that we have a shared position. That doesn't happen much. We think we're a model for the future, for the state and beyond, for people to see what we're doing. And most importantly, we think there will be a massive return on investment from the work that we're doing for our economy here in the community, for our employers, for our families and most importantly, of course, for the students, when they see all the possibilities sitting right in front of them. So that's the history of where we came from, and I hand it over to Jared, and then we have some other great folks from this partnership who are going to tell you more.
Yeah, you can
about
leave
the
that
work.
slide up just for a second, Matt. You leave that one up just for a sec. Great job, and thanks to the UC board for hiring an amazing leader. Rachel's fantastic, and she's just been a delight to work with and her staff. And so I want to just talk real quick about students. Students tend to get a really bad rap these days. I tend to scroll through the media and read what's written about students, and it's oftentimes not positive. I will say this, and I can speak specifically around the students that we have. It's the most amazing generation I've ever seen. It's the most thoughtful. It's the most forward thinking, and I continue to have a conviction that we don't have a talent problem in our area. Our schools are filled with amazing kids, intelligent, smart, doing great things. What we tend to have talking to employers, I think, is an articulation issue. And we have some interesting things. We oftentimes incentivize kids to leave. We give them scholarships so they can go away. And it's interesting in this generation of kids, because what we learn about this is, although it's the most connected generation ever in terms of this, UCLA has been doing a study for about the last 45 years. It's actually the least, it's the generation that's feeling the least sense of connection. And oftentimes our students, there's so many opportunities that we feel a responsibility to our students to make sure that we're clear about the pathways and opportunities for the future. Why don't you go next, Matt? What we're going to talk about today is really what I would say arguably is one of the most important conversations in our community for students currently, and also I think for the next generation and the generational investment we'll make in this. Anytime a community has a death rate that exceeds the birth rate, a lot of statisticians will say, like, you need to be really careful about where you're at. What we're doing here is finding a way to make sure that our community can thrive long-term, that students can thrive long-term, that businesses can thrive long-term. And so I would just contend, as we talk through this today, to be thinking about this John Maxwell quote. He says, and I agree, that everything rises and falls on leadership. And I really want to just thank the leadership in this room, the leadership at UCC, leadership in our school district for having a vision to say, we can build something unique where students at a young age can start to see how their skills match with a desire, an interest, something they're passionate about that leads to a high wage, high demand job here in our community. Let's go to the next one real quick. I want to talk real quick before I hand it over to Brett here in just a minute. Every great design has a great design team. And we've had a great design team on this. So I want to talk about a couple of things we're doing together as we partner together. The first is around a partnership P20. That's from preschool to post-secondary work could be a doctoral degree. When we are thinking about students and opportunities for students, the connection, although the shirts we handed to you today and the hats for David and say Roseburg High School on it, we have 12 schools, but the work we're talking about career pathways is starting early. It's not starting in high school. It's not even starting in middle school. The work is starting early around skill development and pathway development early with students. So when we talk about P20, we're talking about thinking about a student's progress from the time they enter school with us to find about the things they enjoy, they like, to think about how they can thrive. And of course, the skills they're learning are helping toward that. So that's one thing we're doing. And the P20 partnership is really, really important. The college is interested in what's happening in our grade schools and our middle schools. And I would say right now, that's very, very unique. It isn't just about the transition from the high school to the college. The other thing that we're doing is around dual credit. And I'll just talk just for a second about dual credit if you're not aware, but dual credit is a mechanism that allows students before they get to college to be taking college level courses and getting college level credit. What's important about that is several things. There's an economic importance to that, but what maybe, and there's an acceleration component to this, and there's an articulation component to all this, but what's important for this conversation is this. We need to make sure kids see themselves on that pathway early, that they see themselves not as there's a path up there I have to get to, but students saying, you're already on the pathway. You're doing this already. You have the skills. You can do this. And so dual credit serving a purpose for, Rachel talked about illuminating the pathway. We want to see kids see the pathway and also look down and say, I'm on the pathway. And so a couple mechanisms we're using to build together are that P20 partnership philosophy and also the mechanism of dual credit. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Brett to talk a little bit more about the career pathway. So.
It's already on. All right, thank you. Before we get into the pathways, I want to go back and have you guys reflect on the dual credit opportunities. And really, it's I would like some feedback ultimately from all of you. Before you, there's a sheet here and with some data on it, and then some graphs, and then on the other side, give some definitions with what dual credit is and some state and national data. But if you would take a minute and just reflect, review the information, and then I'm really curious in your, something that sparks your curiosity within the data, and ultimately, again, feedback from all of you. So take a minute, reflect on the data before you, and then I'll have you turn and talk. Just speak with your respective colleague amongst the boards. Another great question. So duplicated enrollment would be one student taking multiple dual credit offerings. The unduplicated would be the unique number of students taking dual credit. Does that make sense?
One student taking both credits.
Yep.
And duplicated is all of them in different classes.
All of the dual credits being taken by all students. Right, we're going to come back together in just a couple more seconds. All right. All right, we're going to come back together. I really appreciate everyone's conversations regarding dual credits and the clarifying questions to help us all understand the data before us. Some of the things that I heard were absolutely spectacular curiosities and observations. Some of the questions I heard coming out was that does every student need college? Is college a pathway for every single student? Are these credits that students are earning, are they purposeful for the student? Especially if they're going to go into a trade school versus college. Those are all considerations and things that every one of us needs to be aware of. And really the purpose for dual credit, especially as it pertains to our young folks and the pathways before them. A couple of other questions are, how are we communicating this data? And also, how are these pathways going to be illuminated? And how are our young people and our families and community going to know what opportunities exist? So we're going to learn more about some of this today. And we're going to dive deeper and we'll see some of these, the illumination and our plans for the future coming up. But with that, this is a great launching point into our pathways and what pathways are and really what this partnership is. You know, I can start off with a textbook definition of pathways and let you know that they're very intentionally designed, you know, an order of classes for students to go through and earn credit towards, you know, becoming a professional, whether that's in the trades or moving on to a degree and all of that. And our pathways do include that coursework very intentionally. But for me, it's much bigger than that. And for our kids, it has to be, for this community, it has to be much bigger than just a series of coursework for them to take. My approach, we heard from Rachel earlier that I was hired to wake up every day and design these pathways. And my approach to that is really looking at it a little bit differently, more like a roadmap. Again, I'm going to have you reflect a little bit and think about the last road trip that you took, whether that was with your family, whether that was individually, but why did you take that road trip? And I want you to think about some other things. What planning did you use took place before you took that road trip? What series of roads did you take to get to that destination? When you exited that roadway, why did you exit? What were the purposes, those stops that you made along the way? Was your road trip at the end of it, was it everything that you expected it to be? Was it more? Was it less? Okay. And then ultimately, why did you come back? Why did you come back to Roseburg? So I gave you some questions to think about and give you a little bit of time to think through those. And I'm going to have you again for transparency, I'm going to have you also turn and share with your neighbor again.
And now it's not left.
Keep forgetting about the microphone. I heard some fantastic experiences and a broad spectrum of road trips and purposes there. But Mr. Littlejohn, if you would share, you had two very good situations there.
Two different extremes, right? One of them was the last actual trip that I took. It was with my brother, and we went to the Pac-12 basketball tournament in Las Vegas. And we literally, like a week before, bought a plane ticket and nothing else. And showed up with backpacks and no reservations, no hotel, no basketball tickets, nothing. And we just winged it the whole time. It's awesome. Like, you know, and it's a great experience. And we were there to watch the Oregon Ducks, who won the tournament too. So like, how did that happen? We ended up in like the 8th row, courtside.
That your first one is probably more like most of our students. Do they have kind of a goal, but they just start going and then figure out if they go on.
It's just hilarious to me because it's not what I do.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't leave the house without like a pocket tool and everything. I'm always like that Boy Scout be prepared motto. Like, you want me to go somewhere with no plans?
No. All right. David, thanks for sharing that. And it does symbolize the two wide spectrums that we have here. Jared shared, we have many kids in that one story. of success, kind of, a unique situation. A lot of times it wasn't planned for, and our kids, things come up and they make their way and that. But again, where we're headed, this is very strategic, very purposeful, very intentional. These pathways are like our road system that have destinations that we can all get to, but also keeping in mind that there's many off ramps and on ramps for our kids in our community to go to get the services they need, to stop and fill their tank, to get the food, and those things. So much like that, are the pathways ahead of us for our students in our community, for our students and young people to start experiencing their pathway, as you learned, in our earliest of ages in elementary school, through experiences and opportunities to become aware of what is actually out in our community, the needs of it, in industry and with our partners, and experiencing these pathways along the way. But also for, as Mr. Corden said, and alluded to, that for our students to enter into these dual credit opportunities that are very purposeful and aligned within these pathways at UCC, and that UCC is working to align beyond with our four-year institutions, with the bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, and onto the doctorate. So many off ramps and on ramps for our community members, for our children, our students, to begin on their journey and to exit off into the workforce, but also to come right back into another, seeking another degree, elevating up their career path, and on to the next steps. Many of them, for some of them, it will be a linear path, and that's perfectly okay. But these systems are designed flexible enough to meet everybody, and accommodate everybody and their needs for the health and benefit of our community. So they're aligned directly. I guess how they're developed is in direct partnership with now UCC's faculty. And I want to speak very highly of them. The UCC faculty, Roseburg staff, have been absolutely tremendous. In the world of education, change can be very difficult. Newness can be very difficult. We're used to developing plans down to the second, and we throw a wrench in there, and it can be challenging. But at both places, our faculty, our staff have been absolutely tremendous to work with, and have jumped on board. I want to give them a kudos and shout out there. But these, much like your road trips that you've taken, very purposeful, with intent that deliver and put the kids and students in a position to have entered into a career path that is designed directly with industry to meet our workforce needs, to meet the needs of the professional certificate or the degree offered right here, where they can stay here. Our students and our community members can stay here, learn here, grow here. And when, much like all of you, thank goodness, everybody has returned here. Once they've gone off to their four-year degrees, their master's, their doctorate, that we have developed systems for our community, for the health of the community, for our future that incorporates all of our students and members. So with that, I want to leave you with Vincent van Gogh's words, that great things are not done by impulse, but by a series of small things brought together. And that each and every one of us, this team, our community, the most amazing thing for me is every one of us working together for the betterment of the whole, for the health of our community, for the future of our community, and meeting the needs not only today, but in the future. Thank you. I am going to hand it off to Missy,
And then you're staying.
and then I'm going to stay as well.
So if we could go to the next slide.
So I am one of those Roseburg kids that graduated from Roseburg High and came back to my community. So this means a lot to me. I was a dual credit student, so I know what I'm talking about here, but this is my world. I am the person who works directly with the teachers to become articulated in their dual credit classes and facilitate it with our faculty. And I'm also the person who walks the students through the process of becoming a college student, which can be very confusing for them. And so my office works to try to break that down in a way that they will understand. But we do want them to know that they are a college student and that they are getting started on their path. So that's very important. But what I want to really focus on for 23-24, if you saw that from the graphs, there's already great work that is happening. We are already seeing an upward trend of this partnership of us working together to really grow opportunities for our young people. So for 23-24, we offered 49 total courses for dual credit with Roseburg High School. There were 173 total possible credits for young people to take. 17 of the Roseburg High staff members teach dual credit classes. And we have one partnered pathway where UCC brings the faculty member into the high school, and that's the nursing assistant program. So that's just a quick view of what 23-24 looks like and where we're going from there. And Brett will talk about the growth for 24-25.
So from the work that we've done this year and analyzed the pathways and the programs here at UCC, looked where we are sharing a lot of the curriculum and the experiences that our students are currently taking. Moving into next year, we're looking and already have planned and authorized now 67 and growing. That's not a finite number right now. We're planning for 67 plus purposeful dual credit offerings at Roseburg High School. One course, it's honestly one of the highlights for me because it's kind of backwards. Typically that we'll be working with UCC, looking at the coursework here on the college campus, seeing how it aligns with Roseburg High Schools and where we can mesh those together. One course being offered at Roseburg High School is human geography. We have a very qualified instructor, presented that to UCC in conversations, and the college jumped all over it. Very excited to partner with Roseburg High School to not only bring Geography 142 human geography in for dual credit at Roseburg High School, but also adding it to the catalog here for all UCC students to take. That's a very strategic class as well. A class that allows students to meet some of their baccalaureate core, their AAOT, the transfer associate's degree credits. So I think that's a huge highlight for this partnership as well. We'll be offering right now and growing a total of 259 possible credits for our students to take as dual credit, and increasing that number to 26 staff members, 9 of which are brand new, have never taught dual credit at Roseburg High School for us. We'll be adding along with our nursing assistant program, we're going to be adding 3 new pathways to include phlebotomy. And I want to put an emphasis on the phlebotomy for folks, emergency medical technician certification, as well as fire science and introductory to fire science. And with that, another celebration, there's 2 new departments at Roseburg High School, science and arts, that we have never had any staff members or curriculum articulated for dual credit opportunities for our kids in those 2 departments. The staff, again, kudos to them coming together, looking at curriculum and exploring the opportunities for the benefit of our kids and community. So, all right. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to Missy.
Okay,
Here,
so
again.
the next slide is going to be Jill Weber's gonna kind of move us into the future. So the relationship, how it's growing and what the future holds. Good afternoon.
So you can, much of the, what's on this slide moving to the future, you've already heard. You heard that we're looking at bringing phlebotomy and mechatronics. You heard that we want a pipeline that's really easy for students to see those careers from preschool all the way through high school. Brett has already met with our preschool director who's looking at how do we connect there. We want our kids to see the opportunities when they're young, because we know when you're in second grade, you can ask a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they already have ideas. So it's not like they don't think about careers until they're a junior. They start when they're young. So we want to get that in front of them. Being the high school principal for 8 years, that connection between UCC and the high school is very important. We don't want that to be a barrier. We want that to be an easy process. We're continuing to make that easier as we build our relationships, as Rachel and her staff are open to hearing what are the barriers, what do we do to make it easier? We continue to see that growing. And as Brett used the word illumination, we want to highlight the pathways for students to see. So it's not a surprise. It is a clear pathway for them. So next slide, please. The next slide is just showing the document you have in front of you, which is an example of how we'll be sharing these pathways. This is a document that shows the connection between the career that we have, the high school classes you take, and how that connects with UCC. So we thought about digging into this a bit more, but truthfully, for the sake of time, I have someone who's going to be much more of a joy to listen to than me. And I'd like you to have that time with her. So I met Sarah at the high school, and she is a student who took advantage of dual credit, took advantage of the nursing program, and it has changed her life. As you said, you transforming lives, this program has, and her story is fascinating. And I want to give her the opportunity to share that with you. So please welcome Sarah Bryan.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm Sarah Bryan. I graduated 2022 from Roseburg High School. I'm 19 years old, so I'm just getting started. My journey had started my sophomore year of high school. Originally, I wanted to be an optometrist, but I wanted to get more into the health field. And so I started health sciences, which was a dual credit class with UCC. I ended up wanting to be a pediatric nurse during that class. And then COVID hit, and I saw the effect it had on our community and pretty much the whole world. And I knew that I wanted to be one of those nurses that were taking care of people and making a positive impact on the community. My junior year, I took medical terminology, both 1 and 2 through UCC at the high school. And I was really fascinated by how the body worked and all the medical terms that were used for it. And so that led me to going into the CNA program. I applied to it and I got in. There were 5 of us in my class, and it took up a lot of my time, but it definitely helped me feel more determined to become a nurse. And it also helped me get a better idea of what nursing entailed. So I had 80 hours in the classroom and I had 80 hours in a clinical portion. Jan Dawson was my instructor. She was wonderful, and she was probably one of my biggest supporters through that whole program. During my first clinical, I had experienced a code blue on the medical floor. And that was, as a 17-year-old, that was really hard to see, but it really had made something come out of me where I was like, I want to be a nurse. Like, it really helped drive me to want to become a nurse. One of my classmates who was also in the program, on our 3rd clinical day in high school, she told me, you know what? I don't want to be a nurse. I want to make a career out of being a CNA. And so now she wants to do travel CNA work. And if it weren't for the program in high school, she wouldn't have known if she wanted to be a CNA and would have just gone to nursing and figured it wasn't something she would want. Right out of high school, I applied to become a patient care tech, so like a CNA on the progressive care unit at the hospital. I got the position and I currently work there. I've worked there for the last 1.5 years, almost 2 years now. I love my unit. I love the interactions that I have with people. I see people from around the community, and I see past patients out and about, and it's just crazy how well our community comes together. And it feels nice being a part of that. And one of the biggest takeaways from that was I had a promised job right out of high school. I was only 18 years old and I worked in a field where I still see a lot, and it truly has built me to who I am today. And I really appreciate just everybody coming together and making that possible, because now I've applied to the nursing program and I'm awaiting for acceptance. And if I didn't do that program in high school, then I probably wouldn't have applied this last January for the program, because I wouldn't have had as much experience. I've had I've had over 500 hours working in the hospital in the last year and a half. And that has really made an impact. I have gotten all the possible points for the nursing program that has to do with a CNA certification and hours worked. And so that's why I feel like the program has been a very important part of my career and my future. And to go on with that, getting a bunch of my credits done in high school, I left high school with about, I want to say 30 credits under my belt. And that was my CNA, my medical terminology, health science, and all my writing classes were complete in high school. And that really helped me get all my prerequisites done. I have my associates. I applied to the program. I'm waiting. And in the meantime, I've been able to get my CNA 2 license. I've been able to get my cardiac arrhythmia certification. And that has really helped me learn and build myself to be a better person overall, but also understand how nursing works. And when it comes to community, one of the biggest things that I take away from my whole experience is working in the hospital and seeing the CNA students come through who are at the high school still. And that really means a lot. I remember when I was in the high school program, I was intimidated. I knew how it felt to be 17 years old, working with, nurses who have been there for 30 years and feeling, well, I'm just this tiny high schooler. And so being able to train those people in the hospital and be a part of that, just that whole cycle, feels amazing. And so from last year I work with them now. And so it's pretty incredible. So that's just kind of my whole view on it. I think the CNA program has really shaped my future, and it's really built a great platform for other students. Thank you.
So thank you so much. Did you take a speech class? Because that was fabulous. Yeah, that's really, really good. Thank you for speaking. It really puts sort of meat on the bones of what we're trying to work on when we can see the outcomes, right? And again, when we have meetings like this, we put our heads together and we go, let's bring a great student to speak and talk about their experience. And it's great that we know a few, but I can't wait until we know so many that we're like, well, I can't even pick one, right? Because that's what the goal is here. I want to go back.
I would like to say real quick, thank you for giving back. Thank you.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, great parenting job, agreed. I have a few comments, then I'll hand it over to you to finish and to Stephen Rod. But I wanted to go back to that question of, does everybody need college? And I have a few things I want to address there. Community colleges enroll 47% of the higher education population in the country. And sometimes people think we're a baby university. And that is not what we are. We're a very, very different kind of an entity. We have a mission to serve the entire community, from our little ones that learn to swim all the way through our folks that take art classes, who are retired, and everything in between. And when we talk about, does everybody need to go to college? I'm going to say yes, but that doesn't mean that everybody needs a degree. What everybody needs is to live in a community where they can get enrichment opportunities, to live in a community where they can get on a path to a degree, to live in a community where they can get a trade that serves the community and boosts the economy. And so when we talk about these pathways that we're creating, we're not shutting anybody out. It is incredibly inclusive. If we have students at the high school who want to go through our 5-week truck driving program, we want that pathway to be illuminated too. And yes, that is college. So my answer is always going to be, yes, everybody needs college. And the reason they need college is because that post-secondary credential that they could get while they're in high school is going to ensure that they have a job that makes a wage that will support a family. And that's the major goal. It's not this degree or that degree or some master's or a PhD. It's about how do we make sure that every person in our community has a pathway to a family supporting wage job, and that they give back and that they're part of our thriving economy. I really believe that this work gets us to that goal, and that's why we are so passionate about it at UCC.
Thank you. Just thank those who have participated. Thank you, Sarah. It's great. Great job. And I would just echo what Rachel said. Again, I'm thankful to work in a community that is leaning in to possibilities. It's disrupting maybe the status quo of what people think about us and what we think about ourselves. And I'm again excited for this opportunity, grateful for the joint participation. And with that, Steve and Rod, I'll turn it back to you two. Thank you.
So we have maybe 5 minutes left here. We have to adjourn. So what if we do this, Rod? Will anybody that has any comments they'd like to make, and then we'll let you offer any, and then I'll wrap us up here.
A lot of great information. This is really, I mean, some of it I knew, some of it I didn't, but as board members, what do we need to do? What are some action items? Or, I mean, yeah, we could sit there and listen and say, yeah, well, we agree with that, but what are some steps that we can take to enhance whatever programs are going on, or what do we do? That's my big question.
So you are our evangelists, right? So you hold more information than the average community member. So my call to action for you all would be take this information, share with your family over dinner, tell your friends the next time you see them at pickleball. Share the message about what we're doing and the opportunities that are available for all members of the community, but especially those in the Roseburg School District. Yeah, but carry the message for us. And then, you know, you're going to see budgets that include this work, right? That's one of your primary jobs, is to approve budgets and think about the way we spend our resources. We think this is the most effective and efficient way to use our resources, to pool them. I feel really good about looking at my neighbors and telling my neighbors that I spend their tax dollars on this work. So again, spread that message for us of how effective and efficient these kinds of programs are and what an impact that they make.
You know, I'll just give you my perspective, and I'll speak for Steve here, because it's a completely different answer. You know, what I've discovered is that because I've got to know both of these people very, very well. Jared's like, you know, he's one of my best friends, and you know, of course, I've worked with Rachel now since she's been here. And when you have two leaders that are like just absolutely exceptional in every way, I think what we can do as board members is to just make sure we don't get in their way. And as crazy as that might sound, I'm sure all of you have served on other boards that can be kind of dysfunctional at times and make issues that really aren't the issues, you know, and it just gets in the way of this kind of work they're trying to do. And so I really see my job as, I know this is going to sound really crazy as board chair here at the college, but to work with our board, to support our board, to make them informed, keep them abreast, try to see if there's any concerns or questions they might have, and then keep everybody working in the same direction to support our president, and just allow her to, you know, run with all her creativity, enthusiasm, and the way that she's building and, you know, relationships in the community. And, you know, if Jared was our, you know, college president here, I would be doing the same thing for him. You know, I love Jared. I just know he's just remarkably capable. And so my answer, Mike, would be, you know, just to figure out how you can work together as a board, you know, and part of it is being, you know, the evangelist for the school district and the college and, you know, in the community. And part of it is just, you know, how can we help support you to make our school district and our relationships in the community even stronger.
I'd like to say that part of our jobs as school board members, and I sort of do a dual. I'm on a school board along with the UCC board, but you can also, something that can happen is something that our school board has done is we're trying once a year to have in one of the local places, coffee shop or one of the restaurants, come meet your board members. And we put out there what is going on in the school and sharing also what's happening at the college. And so that's something that everybody can do too. And just let people know that, hey, we're here, we think about you, and we're here for the community. We're here for, you, and getting the positive out there, because like Jared said, it is the negative that everybody holds on to, and they just they will run with that. You give them something positive and it's like, oh, that's cool. And then, so just keep that positive out there. That's the biggest. Yeah.
So it's 5 till, do we have to like wrap this up? Everybody, our meetings start here at like 5 minutes, 4 minutes. So yeah, I suppose we should. Rod, any concluding comments at all?
Doing this is year number 30 for me. I know I don't look that old. I appreciate that.
I'm shocked.
And it takes time to learn this. But you got to allow the people, the professional people, the paid staff members, superintendent, president, you got to allow them to do their job. When you start micromanaging, you're in trouble. And also I challenge you two, but you to do this fabulously anyway. Where the problem begins is when they stop communicating with you. We don't have that problem here. And so let them do their job, and they need to make sure they keep, like you said, keep us informed. There's a lot of good things that go on in our schools. In fact, there's fabulous things that go on in our schools every single day. And I like when you talk about going to the coffee shops or whatever, the board needs to go out in the field. Roseburg goes out. We visited, we have 12 schools. One of our monthly meetings is on a different site. And that allows those folks that go to that school, or allows them, they get to come in, they learn what we're doing. The board is really the advocates, in my opinion. So, and I can talk, we're running short, but I have 2 daughters who are deeply involved, and it's been a long time because there has been dual credits for a few years. And it was very beneficial to them, very beneficial to my pocketbook. And one thing we haven't talked about, I believe kids that are in the dual credit programs, I believe they are much more mature. I think when they get out, they get into the college scene, I think they're more mature. I don't know if that's true. I can just speak for my 2 kids. So, UCC has, I can tell you, has the commitment from our board that we will do whatever we need to do to keep this going and growing. And I really appreciate today. I really like the tour, and I hope we can do it again. We needed probably 2 hours, but yeah, thank you.
One quick question. How do we get access to all of these different pathways? Is it online or?
Yes. That is the first one, this first review publicly of that document. And right now, if there's a link up on the slide there, but if you go to Roseburg Public Schools website and into the community career pathways, if you go into that page, eventually over time, we're going to start working on every pathway. Currently, this current school year here at UCC, there's 94 programs. And we want to list every connection. We can teach them dual credit and experience at Roseburg High School listed on this in a pathway format that is illumination sheet on that website.
Should we send you that link? Like, we can send a link out to everybody if that's helpful. Yep. Great. All right, well, we have a board meeting. We both have board meetings we need to start. Just some logistics. We are going next door. We're leaving Roseburg School District folks here. If my board can please grab their nameplates and bring it with you, that would be super helpful for next door. And thank you so much. This has been lovely.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to, we're convening back into the Roseburg Public School for a brief board meeting, and then we will convene into another board work session, just the Roseburg board. I do want to thank the UCC board for inviting us here. We met at 3 o'clock for a tour of the campus and some buildings, and then we had a joint meeting work session with them at 4 o'clock, and it was very beneficial. Really good. So if you weren't able to watch that, it's probably sometime tomorrow. It will be posted online, so you can see that. Superintendent, review of the agenda, communications.
Thank you, Chair Cotton. Great to see everybody tonight. Thank you for coming early and doing the tour. And I agree with Rob. We had a really good meeting and I appreciate people's participation there. We have no changes to the agenda tonight, and so we'll move forward as printed and distributed. Thank you.
We need approval of the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Okay, opposed. Okay, number 3 is an action item. And the board, about a month ago, we received a letter of resignation for Director Howard Johnson. And tonight we need to act upon that. So I will need a motion and a second to accept the resignation of Director Howard Johnson.
I'll motion for the resignation.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second to accept the resignation of Director Howard Johnson. We'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then we will need to declare per board policy a vacancy, a position number 3. And so I'd like a motion and a second, and then we can have some discussion.
I motion to declare a vacancy of board position number 3.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. Okay, so I want to have just a short discussion. So we have a timeline. So we will tomorrow announce the vacancy, and we do have a press release. And what did I do with those? We do have a press release for oh, Janet's going to get them out. Okay. For the district website, and then a press release that will go out to the media. And this is something that we have to do and that we need to do. So how the time. Okay, so the press release you're getting tonight is just for tonight. So right now, for tonight's meeting.
We have both. Just the first one I didn't think that was for the full.
Okay, so, okay.
That one out first. It has about.
Oh, okay, okay.
But this is what the one.
Yeah. So you got the UCC thing, just set that to a side. The other press release is tonight. What we're going to discuss. Okay. So here's the timeline. Once again, so tomorrow we will announce the folks that want to apply will need to go to the website, and there'll be a Google document that they will need to fill out. And on that document, and then we'll have discussion, because I know Mr. Leone would like to probably say something. He had a question about maybe switching the procedure just a little bit, but I want to give you the option if you want to talk about it. So then the timeline will close on the 16th at, I don't know, 4 or 5 at the end of the business day, 4 o'clock. On the 20th, which is Monday, there will be really a very short meeting. And what that meeting, it's currently set up as, is we don't know who and how many are going to apply. But what it's set up for is those folks will come in. They'll be staged in the small conference room. We will have received each of their the documents ahead of time, so we can read through that, make notes if we need to make notes. They will come in for a very short introduction to the board. We'll ask them if they want to add anything to their document that they turned in. And then if a board member has a clarification on a question, how they, we will, we'll have an opportunity to ask them to clarify something. And then we'll do that one at a time. And then when we're done with the last candidate, the board will vote. And how we vote is there'll be a paper ballot. And the paper ballot goes out to us, and the candidate that gets 4 votes will be our person that we will vote upon on the 22nd at a regular board meeting. When the voting is done, we'll bring them all back in, thank them for coming, and then announce who the board has chosen by a vote. And so that's how I think it should go, but I'm just one person. I only have 1 vote. And so I'll open it up.
What if, let's say there are 8, 9 candidates and none of them receive 4 votes? So
You keep voting.
just keep taking them,
Yeah.
whoever has the most and re-voting? Okay.
Yeah. And I think Janet will send our individual ballots back. Is that how we've done that? Yeah. And if there's not somebody without 4 votes, then we vote again until we have 4 votes. That's the only way to do it that I know of.
And then just for clarification purposes, this seat only goes for the next school year. After that, they would need to refile and actually run for election
it's
for that
1 year.
position.
Correct.
Okay, okay, I don't know what it is. Either I don't understand the process, or I just think it's awkward the way it's set up. Maybe I'm just used to I've interviewed and hired a lot of people over my career, and it doesn't seem right. Or let me first see if I can understand how it works. Okay. So they fill out the application, then we invite them all into a room together, which I think is awkward. And then we ask them collectively or with others in the room, so it's individual. Okay, so maybe it's just the part where you have them all, they all come and sit in a room together. That's just weird. I could see us.
Most of these people probably know one.
Well,
it's community, and they don't have to discuss. School boards. I'm sorry.
Well,
I don't know.
well, okay, so anyway, it just seems a little bit weird to me. I just think it's awkward. I think it's,
So how would
it
you-
could be, what, I would just say that we get their application, we look them over, and then we decide which ones we really think are the people that we want to interview. Then we invite them in one at a time and interview them, but putting them in the same room together, I wouldn't show up. It just would be awkward for me as a person.
I was kind of under the impression that once we knew how many people were going to show up, we'd give them time slots. I don't know about.
Yeah, time slots sound good, but to bring them all at the same time, I think that would be weird. So my recommendation is that we
I'm
don't,
only going by, because I'm the only person in this room who has done this.
all right,
Been 5, 6, 7 times. You get 3 or 4, you might get more. We've never even separated it. They come in, they sit up in the audience. We call Mr. Jones, is there anything you would like to add to your, let the board know, the board asks questions, they sit down, we go forward, and then we vote.
all right. Well,
That's how we've
okay.
done it in the past.
I think if everybody feels okay with it, I'm okay with it. I just think it's awkward, but that's my,
Yeah.
just how I feel.
I feel okay with it. I mean, these people aren't enemies of each other. There's just gonna be 3 or 4 people hanging out in a room together. They're not debating. Nobody's going head to head against each other here. It's just a waiting room. If you go to a job interview, there's a lobby where everyone has to wait their turn, and not a big deal, I don't think. I'm comfortable with the way you already described it.
I'm good with whatever as well. I do feel a little bit, it's awkward being in a room like that, but I think it would be fine too, because we're all adults here. I did want to clarify though, about this whole process is that there are no set ways in which this can be done. The Oregon School Board Association basically says that when this situation arises, that we just appoint someone, we vote on someone. So we could pick, I don't know, we could take Colonel Sanders and he's our candidate and we just come and vote on him and he's the board member to fill that chair. So, but I believe that Chair Cotton has been very gracious to try to make it so that it is open to other people who might be interested that we've never thought of or something. So that's why this process seems a little weird and not dialed in, only because there's nothing written about how we have to do this.
Yeah, I also want to commend Chair Cotton for being open. Because when we started talking about this, we were kind of, mush. And so we've kind of developed the conversation into, what would be most fair to the community? What would the community's voice best be appreciated in process, instead of just saying, okay, we lost a board member, we're grabbing this guy. We don't care about what the community wants. And by the way, Colonel Sanders passed away, so he's not going to be.
Long time ago.
That is why I pulled his name.
Okay,
Thank you.
so when we have them all in the room, it'll be a regular board meeting? Or is this an open board meeting to the public?
Mhm.
And so will we be asking them to ask questions in front of the whole in public?
No, how I see it happening and how it's happened in the past is, like I said, we've always had them and sitting in the board. Always, we haven't separated them. So this time, out of courtesy of me hearing that, I said, okay, let's set them off in another room, bring them in, have them introduce themselves. I mean, I'm one that has to look at somebody in the eye before. This to me, it's a really important role or important vote. And in fact, it's probably as important as anything we're going to do. Because I've sat on a board where we've brought somebody forward. And it wasn't the following year wasn't very enjoyable. You have to be very careful what's that?
Oh.
Yeah.
I was just laughing at you.
We have to make sure that we have the right fit for the district. And so, anyway, my vision is they come in, like I said, Mr. Jones, would you please introduce yourself to the current board? And is there anything you would like to add, anything that we should know? And Director Minor may say, hey, yeah, on question 3, can you expound upon, I didn't quite understand what you meant. And there might be two board members that want to ask questions. They're done, they go back, you bring the next person up. And then we've had an opportunity to read their form. We've had an opportunity to give them if they want to add something else. And then we have an opportunity if you have a question, and then I think then we vote, and we should have a clear conscience of how we vote.
Keep running, and we're voting for one individual, while the others sit there and say, I just think it's, but
So let me just be clear.
There's, when we vote, nobody's in the room except the board members.
Oh, okay.
They go back to their room, we vote, and when we have a candidate that has 4 votes, we will bring them in. We will thank them for coming, and then we will announce who got the 4 votes, and then we're done for the night.
2 votes. Sorry, lost.
Well, I won't say I'm sorry you lost. I will say thank you for coming. Thank you, and stay involved. I also look at it as an opportunity, like I did with the budget committee folks. You know, you're bringing more people, more folks into the fold that understand we have a really good school district, and you want them to be involved. And many of those folks, if you ask them face to face, you know, we'd like for you to get involved, come to the meetings. They feel like they're part of the district. And I just think it's an opportunity to get more folks that. No, no, no.
That's where I'm.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
That's why I'm hearing it wrong.
no, no.
Okay, because that would be weird.
Yeah, no,
Okay, that's,
no.
I'm good.
no. Okay.
That was my hang up.
All righty. We have a motion, a second. All in favor of, so we've declared the vacancy. This is part of the discussion. So all in favor of declaring a vacancy for board position number 3, please vote. Opposed? Okay, thank you. And you know what? This might be an opportunity for us when we work on policies to get our heads together and put in policy how we want it to do. Because I went back and read it, I thought, oh my goodness, there's nothing. It's a blank slate. And so we could put in policy how we want it to run. And I apologize for the herky jerky, but when there's nothing, when it's a blank slate, you try to do what you can do to, you know. So anyway, I appreciate it. Now we're going to adjourn the regular board meeting, and we're going to go and convene the board work session. And Michelle, it's yours.
I got it. Thank you, Chair Cotton. In our joint work session tonight with UCC, we discussed the partnership that is supporting our students to achieve their goals after graduation, which is part of our strategic plan to provide our students that care, support, and instruction. Our focus as a district continues to be on our strategic plan, ensuring our students have the care, support, and instruction needed to thrive and succeed. So as a district, we continue to review and discuss data, determine next steps, and to continue to support all of our students. As a board, you've been receiving presentations at our board meetings from schools regarding their at-a-glance school report cards. The report cards that they've been reviewing with you, the at-a-glance pages, are an overview for parents and community members. Tonight, we're going to be looking at the accountability detail sheets, which are a part of the Oregon School Report Card system. And we're going to look at, these are what are the more technical details for districts to drill down and look at data. Our cabinet members, Melissa, Jill, myself, continue to work with our principals to review their data. We do go over these accountability detail sheets with them. If you had an opportunity to look over your binder or the materials online, you can see that there is a lot of information included in these detail sheets. The purpose of our time together tonight is to provide you an overview of the accountability detail reports. We are going to go through a couple of them together to talk through them. And then at the end, I will turn it over to Chair Cotton to determine, because there's a lot of information after this overview, if you would like in the future to have more discussion about the accountability reports. So we are going to start on page 8 in your binder. Absolutely.
I almost wet my pants because I thought you were asking me a question.
I was not.
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
It will be at the very end. You don't have to worry about it.
What I do want to, and you don't have to raise your hand. Did all board members do a pre-read of this report?
I'll call myself out. I did not.
We're going to walk through it together.
I did. And there's a lot of information there. So it's just, I just want to remind you, if you, when we get large reports like this, it really is beneficial to individual directors. Along with everybody else to kind of at least look over them and see the numbers and some of the things I didn't understand, and I know you're going to hit that tonight.
Absolutely.
You're not going to cover all schools.
No, I'm not going to cover all schools. What I'm going to do tonight is we're going to go through some pieces of the manual to understand what's included. And then we will walk through Joe Lane's accountability details report, because the K-8 reports are all the same. They look at the same indicators. Then we're going to look at RHS and we're going to look at Phoenix. And then there'll be an opportunity for questions as we go along or at the end.
So I was gently, the reason why I asked that question, and I probably should do this, but I did. I'm going to spank you a little if you hadn't had an opportunity to look at them yet, because it's pretty important, but she'll get us caught up.
Just for the record, I did read all my stuff for the May 22nd.
I know. I appreciate that.
So I flipped flop.
So you are further ahead than any of us.
Yeah.
22nd.
No worries. Okay, we are going to start on page 8 in your binder, just to talk about the introduction as well as the purpose of the accountability detail sheets. So just to give you some background, the Oregon legislature created school and district report cards in 1999. So this is something that has been taking place in Oregon for quite some time. There's been a few different iterations. The current iteration came about in 2015. So that is what we are looking at with the at a glance profiles, as well as the accountability details report. That happened when No Child Left Behind was replaced by the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA. There has been, last year, they did do an overhaul of the at a glance, which is the report card that you've seen from our schools, that when we have the board meetings with them, they did make it a little more user-friendly. But the version that we have, that at a glance, and then we have these more detailed accountability sheets, has been in place since 2015. And the purpose of the accountability detail sheets and the at a glance profiles, it's really provide an annual snapshot of a school as well as the district performance and improvement and each school's identified level of support. We'll talk about what that means as we get further into it, but just remember that these accountability detail sheets are the technical pieces, and there is a lot of information in them. I'm going to go over some of the information, but we will not get into every single piece tonight. But we will have an opportunity, if you so choose, to discuss it further in the future. If you could turn to page 10, please. I wanted to share with you the accountability student groups. So this is the students that are included in these accountability detail sheets. The student groups are assigned level ratings for each of the indicators. We'll look at those indicators in more in depth as we go through. Just wanted to point out to you that a group is reported if it meets a minimum size of 20 when the 2 data years are combined. So there has to be at least 20 students between the 2 years combined together in order for it to show you a number on the report. Otherwise, you're going to see an asterisk or an NA depending on the number of students. Sorry, we've got people trying to come in on the Zoom. It's okay. The student groups that are included in the accountability system are listed here. So there's all students economically disadvantaged. The economically disadvantaged category has changed drastically since COVID, especially for our district, since we now have the community eligibility provision and we provide free meals to all of our students. So now the numbers for all students are going to match economically disadvantaged on this report. That doesn't mean that all of our students are economically disadvantaged. That's just how this data is pulled. And it's based on the number of students that are receiving free lunch in your district.
Just a quick
Mhm.
question. If you like. Okay, with, obviously our country is experiencing a lot of new migrants moving in
Mhm.
with a lot that would fit in these categories. Are we here in Roseburg feeling any of that? Is there any
We
uptick in it?
We do have some newcomer families that are coming from other countries into our district. We've had 2 or 3 families move in this year. It's not a large influx, such as like in Sutherland, they do get more because there's more agriculture with the blueberry farm and those type of things. But we do have a few families coming in. And the other groups that are included, English learners, students with disabilities, they now have added a category that's called underserved race/ethnicity. This category includes American Indian, Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, Black African American, and Hispanic Latino students. So it will report this as a group together, and then also individually for each one of those ethnic groups when we get into the report. The other part that I need you to understand are the level ratings. When we look at the report, you're going to see level 5, level 4, level 3, different colors. And then it's like, what does all of these levels mean? This is a description on page 10 of those levels. And for each indicator in the report, the level 5 is the state long-term goal for that indicator for 26-27. Level 4 is halfway from the baseline to that long-term goal. And level 3 is the baseline. How that baseline state average it's figured out is for ELA and math average gap scores, that's 21-22 information. For everything else, they're using 2016-17 data for the baseline for those indicators. For level 2, it's the 10th percentile of the schools in 21-22, or for all the other indicators, it'll be 22-23. And then level 1 is below the 10th percentile in the state. And we'll talk about that more when we look at the individual reports. If you could jump to page 16, please. I wanted you to make sure to understand which students are included in these reports because there are specific inclusion rules. In the middle of the page, you'll see where it says inclusion rules. These are the inclusion rules for the average gap score change indicator, but they're the same for each one of the indicators. The students have to be enrolled at the school on the first day of school in May. They have to be enrolled in grades 3 through 8. This is for all of the ones on the K-8 indicators. And then for the high school ones, it would be obviously they're enrolled in 9th through 11th grade. The students are enrolled for a full academic year. What does that mean? A full academic year means that they've been there for more than 1/2 of the instructional days prior to the first school day in May. So you can see that this does not include all of our students. It would have to be students that were there for more than half of the year and were enrolled in the school on the first day of May. That's why when you look at the reports, sometimes the numbers of students included do not match the enrollment in a particular school. They have to have a valid test, which means they completed the test or the partial test. It means that they responded to at least 5 questions or 1 performance task item on that test. And then students who are not first-year English learners. So Director Leone, so any of our students that are new to country and it's their first year of English learners, they will not count on these, they will not be included on this report. Are there any questions about the inclusion rules or any other, all this lovely technical stuff that I'm sharing with you?
I've got a question going back to the level ratings.
Uh-huh.
So level 3 means that they are at level, correct?
Level 3 means that they are at the baseline state average.
So is the baseline state average considered passing? I mean, if we're talking, trying to
Yeah.
equal it out with other forms of rating scales we've had in the past?
Yeah, basically.
At average, above average, great.
Yes,
Okay, so
basically.
grade 3 is great, but then level 2 is only 10%.
Yeah,
So-
the 10th percentile. So when we talk in just a minute and I show you the scale for each one of the indicators,
Yeah,
the jump to get from level 2 to level 3 is huge.
that's what I'm asking.
So a lot of people hang out in level 2. That doesn't mean they're not improving. It means it takes a big jump to get to level 3.
So
and-
yeah, it's 10% to 90 to 100% to 99% is level 2.
It's very hard to get from that one to, yes.
So am I to understand that level 3 really isn't all that good, right?
Level 3 is the baseline state average that the state puts
Right.
forward that says you're at level 3, you're at the baseline, you're headed in the direction of hitting the long-term state goal.
And then still one more, level 5, is that,
That means you've already hit the state long-term goal for 26, 27, but we're not there yet.
okay, well, I guess I'm still just confused, but let's say we're talking about an 8th grader. Are they saying we want to progress 8th graders from this year to this year to this year in 2026? So an 8th grader this year, level 3 is going to be in 3 years from now, be a level 2.
So it depends
We're
on,
raising it?
it depends on the indicator. So if you look at page 11, really quick to take you back or to have you
Yeah.
turn a page. These are the cut scores for each of the level of the indicators. So for instance, in K5, for regular attenders to be a level 5, 93% of the students in the school have to be a regular attender. That means that they're in school basically 90% of the time. And then it goes down from there. If you jump to achievement, like ELA achievement, if level 5 means 80% of the students have to be proficient on that ELA assessment in order for that school to be a level 5.
Okay, that's why this is
Yeah.
confusing, because why don't they just put that, why don't they just say 67% of the students are?
I totally agree with you.
Okay.
I just, so, yeah.
So you understand where I was getting,
Yes.
I don't understand this. Sometimes I was reading, I was really happy. And other times I was in a fetal position in the corner.
Yes, yes. And that's why we wanted to walk through and to show you that the data and the information that they use for each of the indicators, it's different. You can't compare a level 5 for being a regular attender to a level 5 for achievement because they're using different cut scores for each one of the indicators. So it's our job at the district level to dig into this and for us to understand where those cuts are. and then to help you understand where we are on that trajectory. The main one is to talk about when we get to the individual school reports, the gap between a level 2 and a level 3. You can see here on the page 11 for ELA achievement, to be at a level 2 is 18% of the students being proficient. A level 3 jumps to 54%. So any school that's between 18 and 53 is going to stay level 2 until they jump to that 54%. Then it jumps to 67, then it jumps to 80. So the gap is smaller between the top 3 levels than it is for the bottom levels.
So on page 10,
Mhm.
why would they use the same for ELA and math, same year? And then for all other indicators, they have a 6-year gap.
So there has to be multiple years of data. The state, because of COVID, there was missing data in the middle there for several years.
Didn't have the data.
So they didn't have the data.
Just want to
Yeah.
make sure it was a mulligan type.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what it was.
Also, when it, when we get to the charts and stuff, I see that it says all students
Mhm.
and then it has all the, it's broken down.
Right,
Does all students include all of those?
yes.
So it's everybody. So there's no line there just for students that wouldn't fit into these categories.
Correct. All students fit into those categories.
So, I mean, so if you took all those students that are not in, that are down below, if you took all of those out, do we have a reading of what all the other students are doing?
No, because that is all of our students. It has white, black. It has all of our students listed down below as well. They're just split into different categories.
But wouldn't all those that are down below all students, wouldn't that bring down the levels of,
I think
of all?
there's no students who don't fit in those categories. So
every student fits in one of those
Yes.
categories?
Yes. Yes.
Well, so every student fits under economically disadvantaged English learners.
So economically disadvantaged, like I explained a few minutes ago, because of the change with COVID, all of our students are included in economically disadvantaged because we are feeding them a free lunch right now.
Oh,
So it's those numbers are skewed. So
okay.
I wouldn't we don't look at the economically disadvantaged category on this. That will be the same, pretty much the same as all students because it is all of your students. But if you look below that, all of our students fit into one of those categories. Some of our students fit into more than one of those categories. So you could have an ELL student that is also a Hispanic student or a multiracial student. They could fit into multiple categories.
So basically what you're saying,
Yeah.
is that the economically disadvantaged line is kind of the line I was looking for.
Yeah, and that is the line that is now skewed because of COVID. They are counting your free and reduced lunch students, but a lot of districts like us, we are now doing the community eligibility provision. So we feed all of our students for free. So the state's data is now skewed to look like all of our students are economically disadvantaged. And there's actually a line on the district report card that says that that number is now skewed really high because we're feeding all of our kids free lunch.
I have to ask this or just make a comment.
Sure.
I know we need to move along.
It's okay.
So this report that we have really is not for public consumption.
It's available
It's
freely online.
available,
Yes.
which is fine because that's state law, but how would they understand that? I mean, look, I'm not knocking anybody.
No. I understand.
You guys look
Yeah.
at this every day.
We do, yeah.
And the board,
And
most boards probably are not even meeting on this.
right, and that's why that the state says, even in this manual that you go through, that those at a glance reports, which are the ones that you've seen that at the board meetings, Those are the public facing, that's for community members,
Yeah.
the public and parents to look at. And then these reports are the technical pieces that districts dig down
'Cause
into.
we want to see the meat and potatoes.
Yes.
Because we can't. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, then
So-
that's how we make decisions on supporting students is by digging into these more technical
And
reports.
I didn't ask the question that we're hiding stuff.
No, no,
That
no.
was not, my thing is.
Yeah, all of these are publicly available
Correct.
for every
If-
district.
But if they don't sit through a work session, and that's why they have this summary page, they don't. I can guarantee you, most districts. I'm not sitting down
Yeah.
and doing this, and I apologize,
No,
but we
that's
want
fine.
to know.
Absolutely. I could talk all night, but you probably don't. want to
So,
know.
okay, I just.
Please don't.
I won't.
Anyway,
What's most important, and I'm really pleased about this, is that you guys understand it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because that really is all.
I have
You're the
been-
ones that are going to be making those changes.
I've been living and breathing these reports
Or-
for the last
no, I won't.
5 years.
I
Um,
will just mention, just real quick, I think for the board's perspective here, if we really are serious about care, support, and instruction and graduation, you have to understand this.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're doing some post-mortem work. What do the data look like? So all these reports are confusing. We think there's real value in the board understanding, like we've got work to do. And hopefully what this does for you is, say when we're at Green in 2 weeks and you're hearing that report, you'll know that the plan that's put together in conjunction with our goals and your goals is influenced in part by this data. When we say, where does improvement need to happen? Are these kids getting the support they need? Is instruction happening here? And Michelle, talk a little about some of the arrows too, because there's also another component of, are they trending up? Is it trending down from previous years? So those are the conversations at the building level. We're talking about how to lead the change. So.
Thank you. If you turn to page 29, we're going to go over how to read the accountability detail sheets, and then we're going to jump into an actual report. Jill, there's an extra binder right here. Okay. There's an extra one here if needed. Okay, I think we're good. Thank you. Sorry. I could see you looking. So on page 29, you will see the front page of each one of the accountability detail reports has this indicator ratings table. And this is a summary of all the evaluated indicators for the school. So as you can see, it starts with all students, then goes to economically disadvantaged, English learners, and on down from there. The student group column shows which student group is being evaluated. Where it says SS supports, this column is if the state has identified this student group for support. So there's 2 types of identification. There's a comprehensive. Comprehensive indicates the student group was identified as a comprehensive support school. This only applies to the all students student group. If it is a school that has been identified for comprehensive support, it means that the majority of the indicators on this school's page are level 1, which means they're in the bottom below the 10th percentile in all areas. We only have the only school that's comprehensive is Phoenix Charter School. None of our other schools have been identified. We do have a few schools that have a student group that is targeted. We have 4 schools that are targeted for our students with disabilities. That is a group that is, when it says that group is targeted, then that means that that school, the district needs to work with that school to make sure that that student group is included in that school's continuous improvement plan, and that we are digging into why that group is not improving. I will also tell you that the federal government reviewed how our state, Oregon, was determining these ratings. and determined that the way they were doing it for students with disabilities was incorrect and asked the state to make a change. By making a change, this identified more schools that needed to be targeted, because in the past, if the students with disabilities were at a level 1, they would only put it at a level 1 if it was in the 5% below the 5th percentile. The federal government said you can't do that anymore. You have to look at all student groups exactly the same. And by doing that, it identified that we had a few areas that we needed to work on. So we do have 4 schools that are targeted for students with disabilities. And that's Fullerton 4. Now that my brain is going in, Eastwood, Fremont, and RHS. Thank you, team. It's my brain goes completely blank at the moment. And we'll talk more about that when we get to RHS's report that we look at. And we'll be working with the state on identifying that we're supporting our schools in those areas. Then the next column over is ELA achievement. Then it goes to ELA change and on over from there. For the high school, you will see you will not see math achievement and ELA achievement, but you will see 9th grade on track, 4-year cohort, and 5-year completer. Now, if there is an arrow next to the level rating, that indicates that the level rating increased or decreased compared to the previous year. If it's not rated, that means that that student group did not meet that minimum N size of 20 students for the 2 years. So they weren't evaluated for that indicator. Absolutely.
When it gets to the, when it gets to the comprehensive and targeted ratings, we don't have any schools that are comprehensive. Phoenix is the only school that's comprehensive. The way the targeted rating works is this. So when you look at this matrix, if you have a level 1 within one of the student groups that has 50% or
50% level 1s.
Yeah, 50%. So across. So if there's 6 areas across and 3 of those or more are level 1, that's what puts you in targeted. So it's a little bit confusing. So it's not that all of them are level 1. That would put you also as targeted if it's just that one. If it's all students in level 1, that's comprehensive. So you'll notice in these reports that there will be level 1s in many schools for subgroups. But how the calculation works is if you have 50% or more across in level 1, that puts you at targeted. And to Michelle's point, we had 4 schools with this new kind of rating between some wrangling between the federal government, state government on where the number needed to be, because they're always messing around with tinking with their scores. That's what put those 4 schools that had, you'll notice in the reports, but they had, I don't think any of them were level 1 all the way across. I don't remember, I don't think so. But if 50% or more of those applicable subcategories are level 1 in any of the horizontal subgroups, that's what put those 4 in. And they were, for us, again, they were all in students
with
with
disabilities.
disabilities.
Yeah,
That's where those put
and
up.
we can look at that more in detail when we get to RHS, because we can look across there. If you could turn to Jolene in your binder, we're going to look at their report in a little more detail. See it actually in action. Everyone there? Okay, perfect. All right, so this is Jolene's report. This front page is just like what we looked at for, it's the summary of the indicator ratings table. You can see horizontally going across, you can see the colors, you can see the levels, and you can see the arrows going up and down. You also see that there are several indicators, student groups that are not rated, and that is because the number of students in that particular student group are smaller than the in size that's required to report. So that would mean there were less than 20 students combined over the 2 years for that particular group.
Quick question on when just for clarification, you might have said this and my brain
okay.
didn't get it. when you talk about ELA achievement versus ELA change or
Mhm.
math achievement versus math change, what's the difference?
So we're
between
going to go to those pages in just a second and talk about each one individually.
that? Okay,
So I can share that with
all right,
you. I
great.
just wanted to show you the summary page.
Great.
And if you look down underneath, it says suggested level of support and it says not identified. That's because none of the student groups at Joe Lane were identified as needing ESSA supports. So they were not targeted or comprehensive. So it would be targeted for that particular. If you turn the page, this starts jumping into the individual details. The first one is the English language arts academic achievement details. If I could call your attention to the table that's up in the right-hand corner, this is the cut scores and how each level is identified. So this is where, in order to be a level 5, remember that level 5 is that they're at the state long-term goal for 26-27. So if you're at a level 5 in this category of ELA achievement, it would have to be 80% of the students were meeting benchmark. And then it goes, but if you look, this is the one where level 2 is an 18. And to get to level 3, you have to be at a 54. So the gap from level 2 to level 3 is large. And then it gets smaller to get from level 3 to level 4 and level 4 to level 5. So you will see many schools across the state that are sitting in level 2. But what we are looking for is, are they growing? Are they continuously growing to hit that 54%? So if we look at the student groups, all students for ELA achievement, and this is for Joe Lane, they use 2 years of data. In this particular, on this particular indicator, it's 21-22 and 22-23 data. In 21-22, 47.3%. Remember, these are the students that were included. So they had to be enrolled on May 1st, there for more than half of the school days and meet all of those inclusion numbers. And then in 22-23, it went to 51.6. That state averages those two together to give you the 2-year average, which was 50%. That 2-year average is what's used to determine your level. So at 50%, they're at a level 2. They move up to 54, they'll be at a level 3. And then it goes down through each of the student groups. And if you look at this one, see how economically disadvantaged and all students are the exact same numbers because it's all of the same kids. Because we are feeding all of them a free lunch. So they are counted as the state under that economically disadvantaged category. And then it goes down from there. If you jump down to our multiracial students, so these are students that their parents have identified them that they are 2 or more races. So we have a multiracial category when parents register our students. And this particular group at Joe Lane, which you can see there were 39 students in 21-22 and 33 in 22-23 for a total of 71 students. They are at level 3. They've hit the 54.9%. This is for ELA achievement. Any questions about the ELA achievement? This one's one of the easier ones to understand. It's pretty cut and dried with gap score is a whole other animal when we get to the next one. Okay, next you will see the gap score, the English language arts average gap score. This one is a little bit more difficult to explain. And I'm going to jump back to a page so I can read the definition to you. It just makes it a little bit easier to understand. Because I know I had to read it many, many times before I understood it. Where did it go? Too many pages. There it is. Okay, So the accountability system, this is on page 16, has traditionally they used individual student growth in ELA and math as indicators for elementary, middle, and combined schools. This requires that students have prior test scores at which to measure growth. So they have to have at least 2 test scores in order to determine if there's been any growth. Because of this disruption in 1920 and 2021, the ODE had to have an alternative measure because we lost 2 years of data. So you couldn't compare one year to the next. So they changed to this alternate measure for 22-23. So this measures change in the average difference or gap between actual student test scores and then the proficiency cut score. So for ELA, the state determines this is a cut score that says this student passed the test. So if you get this cut score, you passed that or you were proficient on that test. So this particular indicator looks at what the student score was, what the passing score is, and looks at what the gap is between those. So how many numbers are between them. And then it looks at every student's gap score and then averages all of that together to give the school's gap score. So it is crazy. Yes.
Effectively a trend line
Yes.
in terms of our students gaining on proficiency.
Yeah. So if you look back at Jolene's ELA average gap score change, you can see that they are sitting at level 4s, level 5s, and level 3s. So there is improvement and change, and they're moving. That means that the students are closing the gap and moving closer to that score, that average cut score for that particular test. So these are positive colors that you want to have on this page. Any questions on that? It's pretty technical, but I'm happy to talk more, but it tends to just start circling around.
It's not really a specific question, but what did they use before they switched to this gap? They just used.
They were doing, it was a similar way of doing the gap score. It's just they had to make some adjustments because we lost some data over time. So they'll do it for this year and next year. So if what you can see on this is the gap score here, they're looking at 2018-19 data and then 22-23 data.
Will they go back to the old way?
They'll go
when
back
they have
to-
consecutive years of data?
Yes. Yes.
So it's not just an attempt to hide the current score?
No, there were no scores.
Okay.
So there were no scores in 2021. And then in 21-22, we only tested a small number of students and it wasn't in every subject area. So those 2 years of data, the state is not using to make decisions or to put onto these particular reports, at least for the gap scores. So that's why it says up at the top, 18-19 and then 22-23. The positive though is Jolene is closing the gap all the way back from pre-COVID to now we're after COVID. So we are starting to see improvement there.
And these are cohort numbers. And so it's actually kind of relevant, actually kind of interesting to look back at 18 and say, are we seeing the growth in that student? Are students generally closing the gap? So this cohort data, sometimes it's a little bit tricky with data. If you take a look at last year's 4th graders and this year's 4th graders, because they're different kids.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're actually like, well, that's a good indicator. I think cohort data is what we try to look at, which is if you've got this group of kids here, how are they doing and are they closing the gap? Is that group, not as that grade level closing the gap, because it's a different group of kids.
Yeah.
So the cut score, this is actually like longitudinal cohort data, which is interesting. Like, are the things we're doing helping kids effectively gain more than a year's worth of growth in a year for kids that weren't there yet?
And this data aligns to what's been shared with you at our individual school meetings, that we are seeing growth, bigger growth in ELA than we're seeing in math. Because when we look at the math scores, you're going to see the difference there. So if you turn the page, there's the next one is the ELA, English Language Arts participation details. This is the federal government requires that 94.5% of our students participate in the statewide assessments, and that's in grades 3 through 8 and 11. Oregon is unique because we there's a state law that allows parents to opt out of these assessments, which is in direct, it doesn't line up with the federal government requiring us to test almost 95% of our kids. So sometimes we will see that these numbers are not met because we have parents who are requesting that their students not be tested. So you can see for Jolene, it was pretty close for students with disabilities. The average was 93.5%, but it needed to be at 94.5. So that shows that they did not meet participation. What I have to do every year is any of these subgroups that do not meet the participation, I have to write an explanation as well as what the plan is to make sure we are trying to get that number up in the future. The next one is the mathematics academic achievement details. If you look at up in the corner at the ratings, at the levels, again, level 5 is at 80, which is the long-term goal for the state for 26-27. Then it goes down from there. If you'll please look at level 2, that is 8, and then it goes up to 43. So that band for level 2 is very large, and then it goes from 43 up to 62. To keep that in mind. So if we look at Jolene's scores, this is 21, 22, and 22, 23 data. So the first 2 years after we came out of the pandemic, you will see where they landed and where the students with disabilities are at a level 1, and that is an area of focus. It was not enough to identify that as a targeted area by the state, but it does show us that that's an area that we need to work on. The asterisks are there because those numbers are tiny, and to protect the identity of students, they put asterisks there because they're smaller in sizes. Then if we jump to the next page, you'll see the gap scores for math. This is the same explanation as with ELA, looking at what that cut score is to be proficient on the test, looking at the student's score, calculating that gap, then averaging all the gap scores for the number of students who were tested. So you can see there's lots of different colors on this particular one, but there is change that is happening for groups of students. And then the next one is the mathematics participation detail. Again, this is the same where it needs to be 94.5% based on the federal requirement. So we do have some groups that did not quite meet that.
I want to note on this one too, that the growth in the participation and in 22, 23, that if it was just rated off of that, they would have had needs.
Yes, it's because they averaged the two together. So yeah.
I think we're going to see that.
Absolutely. It's definitely in improving.
Michelle, I noticed
Mhm.
at the high school level that there's no gap scores.
There are not, because they do not look at the math. They add the additional math and ELA proficiency are the achievements there, but they don't do the gap scores because they only test in 11th grade and high school. So it's very hard to have multi-years of data.
Big gap.
They would have to have gone back to 8th grade to 11th grade.
Good.
I thought we were still on Jolene.
We are.
Oh, I
You jumped ahead.
I got confused.
No, I just looked over.
I didn't
and
know if I was supposed to have moved.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanted to
Okay.
see what the gap scores. just wanted to
He's
see our
trying to move
improvement,
ahead
but it's
on
not
this.
And he's
Sorry.
a teacher.
The next page, I'm sorry, Jared, was there something you wanted to share? Okay, perfect.
There is, when we get there, just know like this is one set of data we look at. but there's a lot of formative data. There's a lot of, we do progress monitoring data. So there's a lot of data. We just want to show you this set. So if you go like, oh my gosh, we're not paying attention to 11th grade.
No,
Not true at
that's
all.
not the case.
But on this report, it's going by the OSAS or the state assessment data. So
The next page is the regular attenders details. And I know that the board has heard in all of our individual school presentations that attendance is still an area that we are working on, especially just coming off of the pandemic where attendance dropped and then getting parents, getting our school students back into school. So this is the 21-22, the 22-23 data. And you can see up in the corner what those cut scores are. So from level 2 to level 3, it goes 54 to 83. And then very close together between level 3, level 4, and level 5. If you look at 21-22 for all students at Joe Lane, it was 56.8%. Again, these are the students that were included in this data set, so they had to meet all of those requirements. And then 22-23, it did improve to 64.5, but they look at that 2-year average. So the 2-year average was 60.5, which puts it at a level 2. Again, attendance for our students with disability is an area of concern at Joe Lane. And will be a focus for them, all students, but specifically for our students with disability, looking at what we need to do to help them come to school more often. And then the last one is our on track to English language proficiency details. You will see on the majority of our schools that we don't have a large enough population for it to show up on these detail reports, but we do. Our students take the ELPA. Our second language learners take the ELPA. So we do get those scores and can see that our students are making growth in English language proficiency. It's just not on this report because there's not enough of them. So that's a K-8 school. I know I just threw a lot of stuff at you, but we're going to jump and look at the high school really quick. And then also we're going to look at RHS and also look at Phoenix. And then I'll open it up to questions. So if you jump to Roseburg High School, you will see that the indicators are slightly different. As Director Leone pointed out, we don't have the gap scores because we do not have 2 years worth of data. Because in high school, the state assessment is only taken in 11th grade. So you can see for RHS, where they fall on these indicators. And if you look at students with disabilities, you will see under SS supports that it says targeted. And as Jared pointed out, you look horizontally across there and you look for the number of level 1s, because 50% of those indicators are level 1, then that particular student group now falls under targeted based on the state criteria, which means we need to make sure that in that building's continuous improvement plan that students with disabilities are targeted and a plan for supporting them to grow in these areas is in place.
Under targeted, does the state provide funds or extra funds based on this, or?
They do not.
Okay, they want,
you gotta love this.
What's wrong with them?
As a support. Yeah, you got this.
They will provide technical support to help you with what supports in the building. But now there used to be support for targeted schools. So pre-pandemic, if a school was targeted, then the school district would receive some additional funds to help with that. But those funds are they're not funds currently available for targeted schools. The districts are just expected to put in supports and help the students with what they have.
Similar to the IRS.
to hire more agents.
Perfect. So if you turn the page, we'll look at each one of the indicators. Again, this is ELA achievement. You can see the cut scores up in the right-hand corner. Again, noticing that gap from level 2 to level 3, the 18 to 54. Thank you, Jill. I feel like my face is on fire, but I know it's just really warm in here. So you can see the data from 21-22 to 22-23. All of the indicators are at level 2 for ELA academic achievement. There is growth that is happening in some areas. So if you look at students with disabilities, it went from 5.9 to 30, but the average is 21.7. So we know that that average needs to get to 54, but there is growth happening in that particular. There's definitely growth. Our Hispanic students, underserved race and ethnicity are growing, as well as our multiracial. So you can see where the growth is there. Again, we have the ELA, the English Language Arts participation details. These are the student groups that met that 94.5. If you look at students with disabilities, that average was 94.2. So we missed it by 0.3 to get to the MET. But we do look at those pieces. If you look down at multiracial at the bottom, it went from 88.5 to 100%. But because it's the 2-year average, it's not met yet, but it will be as we keep moving forward. So we really look to see, is growth happening? Are we trending in the right direction? Mathematic achievement, again, we have that big gap. Level 2 is 8 and level 3 is 43. As we talked about before, and as you've seen in multiple reports that we have shared, math is an area for the state that is being focused on. And so students with disabilities is called out, and that's why the RHS is targeted for our students with disabilities, that's an area we need to grow, but we need to grow in all of our student groups for math. Participation details, interesting enough to show that there was a lot that were not met in 21-22. The numbers have gone up significantly. If you look at 22-23, we had a big push to have more participation, but because of that 2-year average, some of those categories have not met.
Every category.
Yes, we went up. We worked on it. Yes, for sure. And then the regular attenders detail is again about our students who are regularly attending. So this means they have to be there more than 90% of the enrolled school days. And these are also the students that have to fall in those inclusion rules. So it's not all of the students in the building. If you look at 21-22, it says all students with 799 students. We know that there were more than 799 students at RHS, but those 799 met the inclusion rules. So enrolled on May 1st, enrolled for more than 50% of the year, those indicators that we have to follow. And then on track to English language proficiency, again, those numbers are very small. We can say that their 2-year average was a 40, but they're not going to tell us how many kids or what their numbers were because it's too small. The next will be the 9th grade on track details. You can see that we are trending in the right direction with the majority of the areas. We also had to go with that 2-year average, but students with disabilities is still an area that we need to focus on.
I think this is an area they monitor very closely, and the high school does believe that they're going to hit at least 85% this year with a goal of getting over 90, which they've been at before.
We've been at before. It's
I
just
think we're all
the
on the right
recovery.
direction.
Yeah, we're on the way for sure. And then the 4-year cohort graduation details, we are at level 4 in almost every student group except for our students with disabilities. It did grow, but if you look, they're looking at 16, 17, 17, 18, and 18, 19 data. So the 3-year average. So these are pre-COVID numbers based on the amount of information that's needed. And then the last one is our 5-year completers detail. Again, this is 15, 16, 16, 17, and 17, 18. So those 3-year averages, because those are the 3 years that we have consecutive data for.
Do we have an idea what we are now? I mean, based on other,
With
on,
5-year completer or?
yeah, on both of those. I mean, do we have an idea that we're almost doing the same, or?
I think I do believe on the conversation I've had, they believe it will go up, that we're trending in the right direction. I haven't had the individual, I'm not as intimate with the details as I used to be. But I do believe.
Last year's 5-year, when the last time it was reported when you were there, 5-year completer data was in the 90s.
92%, I
Yeah.
think is what it was.
Yeah.
So,
It's 91.5.
That was 17, 18.
okay, so I better understand. Okay, so back on the previous page when it says 9th grade on track and
Mhm.
then 4-year cohort. So based on the colors and the levels, we did a lot of good things in high school. I mean, we're kind of behind the junior high again, which is we're working on that. But based on at least those numbers, I mean, so that's a really good sign, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can sleep tonight because now I can understand it fully how. Because I was looking at, oh my, but we're heading.
We're trending in the right direction. Absolutely. We have a lot of work to do, but the trend is in a positive direction. Yes. And then jumping to Phoenix, I just wanted to have an opportunity to discuss this one because it's the same data as far as the indicators and the student groups that are looked at. You will see that there is a lot more of not rated because they do have smaller numbers of students at Phoenix. But you can see that on the summary page that it's level 1 across the board. Because it's level 1, all students horizontally all the way over, then that means that Phoenix has been indicated as a comprehensive support school. So the state, it's on the list of one of the schools that needs the most assistance and needs to have the most growth. If we turn the page to look at their academic achievement details, you can see that they did have small numbers of students that qualified for these numbers. Remember, these are 11th graders only. So the number size is small. 21, 22, they had 39. At that point, 15.4% of those 39 students were meeting achievement. In 22, 23, it was less than 5%. So their 2-year average was 7.6%. The rest of the group, the areas, they don't have really enough students to garner a score, but that all students tells you where the majority of their students are.
Yeah, they might have enough students, but not enough students that qualified by being there. So
The inclusion
the
rules.
inclusion rules, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that Phoenix administrators have seen this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
they should have.
They have access.
They have
They have
access
access
to it.
to
We'll
it.
put it that way. Yes.
So my question is, they have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
Got to think, phrase this. Is it their responsibility? To know they have access to it, to work on it,
Yes.
and where is where do we fall on the spectrum? I mean, what are we supposed to do?
I do have to include them in my reports to the state. I do have to include what they are working on as far as their continuous improvement plan, because they do fall under our umbrella. But it is the individual schools, in this case, because they're a charter school, it is their responsibility to know this data and understand this data.
So do they write the narrative and send it to you?
Yes.
They did notice they are targeted. on a couple
They're
areas.
Well, they're
comprehensive.
comprehensive,
that's
so
great.
they are targeted.
Yeah.
I've all the way across, basically.
So
So
how
they-
long have you had this?
This came out when the report cards came out, so that was in October.
So have you heard anything from Phoenix since this has come out?
No, and it's probably worth noting that they've been comprehensive for
For as
the
long as
last-
I have been here, and I've been here for 6
which
years.
which means at a minimum, it's a level 1 with all students. But what it can also mean is what you're looking at here, where it's a level 1 in every single subcategory in every single subject.
I'm suggesting that, and then I'll shut up, that they share, that they should be having the same work. I can't direct things because they're their own school, but they should be having a work session with their board to say, we want to share this and go over this with you. I mean, that would be my suggestion.
And you will see a difference on their indicator ratings table because they have 8th graders in their building. So you do see the ELA change and the math change, even though it's not rated. And their ELA achievement and math achievement includes their 8th graders and their 11th graders. So it's a little bit different because of the number of kids or the grade levels that they have in their building.
Okay, so based on this, what we're seeing, we've talked about things that we might do in the future. When will we bring those up? In other words, we've talked in the past kind of surfacely on what we're going to do with Phoenix. When do we plan on addressing it formally?
I think we're addressing it tonight, so you are aware of kind of where we are. Phoenix is in a little bit unique position because they're an independent charter, have their own board and non-executive director, but they are, we share concerns about the proficiency and expect that it's something, to Rod's point, that they're discussing as an organization on how to make improvement with their kids. It's a different situation than our own employees, our own principals that we're working in concert with to set the growth targets, to support them, to support their staff, to look at data. Our relationship with Phoenix doesn't allow us to direct the work. And so it's a different relationship.
Okay, so we're seeing students just being, they're being ripped off. I mean, yeah, they I don't know. I don't even know how to say it, but the bottom line is these guys are failures. This school is a failure from what I could see. And we need to either try to, you said it's been like this since you guys have been here. They're not going to get better. Unless there's some divine intervention, which I'm not sure that's going to happen here. So we as a board need to make a decision on whether don't say anything. No, shut up, Mike. No.
I think I can help a little, but I think kind of what he's getting at is, when is it our opportunity to discuss our funding of their program?
Yeah.
When does that come up for us?
We need to help those students that they're screwing. Yeah.
So the way that process works is we're currently in a 5-year agreement with them right now. And this fall, next year is the last year of that agreement. So there's a process in our contract that talks about the renewal process, and the board at the end of each contract goes through a process of deciding, to look at data and have conversations about that agreement and make a decision on a non-renewal or a renewal. And just so you're aware, the current charter law is there's kind of three pathways, either non-renewal, a 5-year renewal, or a 10-year renewal. And that's the way that process works by statute.
And just to one more, it's up at the end of next school year, so it would be
Our-
summer of 25,
Our contract runs through June 30th of 25.
June of 25.
I think it'd also be important to note that, I mean, not only are they at dismal levels, mostly from what I'm seeing from this report, it looks like it's not getting better. I mean, most of these numbers I've seen from 21 to 22 to 22, 23 are not trending in the right direction. So
Okay, so we have a whole year of students. How can we help them? Is there anything we can do as a school district to help those 30 or 40 students that are in this situation?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, Mike, we've been really kind of extending that hand of support really since I've been here. Our previous agreement had a lot more measures in it. And when the last agreement got signed, we really made it about, making sure the board could see three things. Are kids showing up? Are they growing in growth, and are they graduating? So we've worked to really streamline what the board wants with that. They don't have an egregious amount of data to do, but we do provide a tremendous amount of support in every department, from student services to HR to business office. They're invited, the executive director and the principal are invited to all of our professional learning opportunities to take part in all of the same things that, quite frankly, are driving growth in our own schools. Now, we can't mandate they show up, but we offer that support. We're not the ones teaching those courses directly and interacting with the children, but we are providing, I would just say we're providing a significant level of support opportunity. Our own staff and our own employees are leaning into that in terms of professional learning, professional development, support. And it's not happening at the same rate at Phoenix. And I think the connection there is but the support's being offered. And so again, our contract is unique because we support them as their charter, but we don't direct them as a school. So it's a little bit different relationship. But I want you to know we are doing what we can to help support them. It's not, there's a financial component of that by statute. We're doing that. There's other components we're doing to support them financially. By statute, we're providing professional learning opportunities, inviting them to the things that we do. We try to invite them into our systems that so they can, take part in the same things we do. There's components with transportation we're doing that even necessarily we don't even aren't required to do necessarily, but we're trying to do what we can to make sure. They're all our kids, right? If you take a look at this, we want every student, and I don't care if they go to a private school, public school, it doesn't matter, right? We want all students to be successful, and we approach our relationship in that way, that we want them to be successful. The difference there is we're not running that school. I can't give directives for that school. That goes to the executive director under the direction of a board, and then the principal that is working on that work. So it's a little bit different it's a very different arrangement, if you will, than our own current buildings.
It's not us. I think we're doing what we can do. We've gone probably above board. I think the powers to be need to get their head out of the sand, or whatever you want to say, and start looking at reports and start working on reports and working together like we're doing. And if it's been this way for 6 years, since or for a long time, I'm not even sure their board even knows what's going on. So get your head out of the sand. We're willing to work with you, but we've been doing this for a long time, and there's just I don't get it. So that's kind of the challenge for them.
it just seems apparent that we're providing engine parts, providing instructions, but no one's ever actually tearing the engine apart and putting it back together again the way it's supposed to run. So the car just keeps sputtering down the road.
Do students that go there, do they have any graduates? I mean, they actually get a graduate or a high school graduation certificate? Do we know what the
Again.
percentage of that would be? Is it? Yeah, it's in here?
Mhm. Yeah, so there, you can see there, it's on page 11 of their report. So their 3-year average is 30%.
So but that was back in 18, 19.
Yes,
So,
but they're current, if you look at their 9th grade on track details for 22-23, it was 45.8% of their 9th graders were on track. Yeah, and that's a predictor typically of graduation.
Since we're all just asking questions about Phoenix,
You can ask a question about any of them
Yeah,
if you'd like.
I just have a question. We get their reports from them, and if I remember correctly, it was showing improvement on the data that they showed to us at the last meeting. I remember I personally told them, "Hey, good job," but was that just people who were taking the test? Because
That
from the year 2 years ago to 1 year ago, we were saying, "Hey, we gotta at least test everybody," and it looked like they were making improvement. The test scores went up, but then I see this and it's going down. So was
was
there
formative 360.
data?
Yeah.
So they had the. I
Different-
think- Yeah, so
Did they
this is.
cherry pick that data? I guess
Yeah,
is
it's
what I'm
different. I
asking.
mean, this data is going to be reliable in terms of what this cohort that this polled by this data. I don't know that we've received a report that has all kids from Phoenix since I've been here. If we looked at that, we've had a couple of times where it's I don't think we've had a comprehensive report that maybe the boards felt like we had. I don't feel like we've had a comprehensive report around where all kids are at. I think the last data set we got was about half the kids were tested for certain things. And I think what they're looking at, I think some of the data they showed was formative data. They use Star 360 there, which is more of like an indicator of where they're at. This is some summative data in terms of we're doing testing in the spring to see, do you meet or exceed the benchmark? So sometimes formative data can actually be more important, for sure. But we have data sets in different buildings that will look different than this data. It just gives you an idea. It gives you something to look at. So, but there should be parity between these reports, clearly. So as we take a look at like our elementary schools and the elementary team gets together, we're asking the questions like, hey, what's going on in that building? You guys are doing great here. Talk to me about how you're moving this forward, the middle school level, high school level. So these reports do provide a level of parity in terms of it's a common assessment, delivered in a common way to look at proficiency. But we see the results being vastly, vastly different.
Chair Cotton, is there anything that I didn't cover that you would like me to discuss tonight? Well, I know you had a vision for what you
Well,
wanted us to be
I
tonight.
think
so
number
just
one,
wanna
I
make sure
wanted us
hit
to
it.
understand how to read the report. And does everybody, much better?
There's a lot of information.
Yeah.
that- we
And
can
so
have
when we
further-
go through, were we done with Phoenix?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm done.
Okay, me too. So then, we need to, so it's gonna be up to us to go back through the other schools. Unless you guys want to stay another hour, I'm pooped. I'm ready to go.
But if the board decides that you would like to have another session
Well,
where
let's
we
ask
talk
them.
more.
Are you comfortable enough to go through the other schools on your own and make notes and you can get a hold of? Or do you want to have another session? I mean, summer's almost here and we've got a big meeting coming up on the 22nd.
You're more than welcome to email me
So that would be my suggestion.
or I'm happy if you want to come in to meet with me to talk individually as well.
So are we okay with that?
fine.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
And Anne's not here, but I'll speak for her. She's fine with that. Okay.
Right, Ann? Okay.
All right. Well,
Okay.
thank you.
So have we covered what we're supposed to cover? Okay, so our next meeting will be the 20th. No, our next meeting will be, that's okay. You could, I need somebody to watch it. It will be Monday, the 20th, 6 o'clock. And I don't know how long it's gonna be. Probably it'll be short. It'll be probably short. And then Monday, the 20th. Uh-huh.
You'll get an invite out. Yeah. Yeah. So Janet
And
will send
then,
an invite.
and then we'll pick up.
So one thing real quick is you can expect, by the board will receive by the 17th on Friday, the responses from candidates from the form. So expect that. Then on Monday, 6 PM, there'll be a special session.
And then Wednesday, the 22nd at Green, we'll do a tour. We really need to do, it'd be nice if everybody can get on that tour at 4:45. And then, well, I know it's hard for you.
No.
Okay.
What's that left?
So the plan for the meeting is to call the meeting to order, do the housekeeping rules, like, we're changing the phone policy. If the phone goes off, it's $75 fine instead of 50. No, I'm just kidding. But the first order of business will be for Jared to give the oath of office to the new board member. And then we'll roll in. And the work session, so to speak, is it a work session, the second part of it with?
Mhm.
I believe you had indicated your topic is not expected on the 20th.
Right, they do not. It's just a board. Yeah, yeah. Board, you or Stephanie. I'll be there. And Jared. Have to have somebody count the ballots. And then, but it's a work session on the long range.
Yeah, well, there's two
Yeah.
items. We have a report from Phoenix and we have, so what's we'll do the student staff recognitions. I think we actually have 2 school reports, if I remember right. So,
Yeah.
because we need to kind of catch up with those, because so we'll have Winchester and Green, student staff recognition, the process public comment, we'll do that. I think we'll start with the swearing in, and then the 2 items are Phoenix's report, and then the long-range facilities plan. The Wolpert Group Corporate Strategies will be here to get input from the board on what you want to see in terms of long-range planning. They'll also share a report around some enrollment trends and as we start to put together the 5, 10, 15, 50-year plan.
And be thinking about, we should be getting a letter or something about participating in graduation on June 1st. Okay. All righty. That's it. Okay, thank you for, no, I got it. Oh, you do have it? Oh, I missed it. That's my magic wand. You have a. I don't think they, I don't think they want a couple old men there on senior cut. I know. Did you do it when you were younger? Did you do it? Participate in it when you graduated? Okay. Okay. Work session is adjourned. Thank you.